We'll do it live. We'll do it live. We're doing it live this morning. Hello, we're doing it live. And the topic of today's show is how to spot a false flag terrorist attack. Or how to spot a false flag terror attack. That is the topic of today's show. So now, if you notice, the U.S. has started a war with Iran and for Israel and for Judaism. So the U.S. is engaging in a big war against Iran for Judaism, the religion of Judaism, and the nation state of Israel. And so the entire government is oriented around Judaism and what's good for Judaism and using the military to forward Judaism. So that's where we're at. And so the question is, we've seen a bunch of terrorist attacks happen recently throughout the United States, in Texas, and also in Michigan. And the so-called FBI is saying that we're going to have terror attacks launched against California by the Iranians. And so the question is, how can you determine what's a actual attack versus a staged event? Now, when I say staged event, I'm not saying that people aren't being killed, because on 9/11, a lot of people got killed. And with the World Trade Center being blown up, a lot of people died. But the question is, well, who did it, right? And on when the World Trade Center was bombed previously in the 1990s, people got killed then. And of course, we know for a fact that it was the FBI that gave them the bomb. That was in the court documents, is that the FBI gave the Muslims the bomb to blow up the World Trade Center. That's a fact. Now, before that, you had the Oklahoma City bombing, and we know from news reports that the Oklahoma City federal building had been loaded up with explosives, like very sophisticated, high-tech explosives had filled up the building, and some of those went off inside the building, and some of them didn't, and they had to pull the ones out that didn't. But then they said it was a truck bomb that was parked outside. But so the question is, how do you judge a real terror attack versus a false terror attack? Or let me put it this way. Okay, so here's a good way to judge. Let's just throw it out there. A good way to judge a staged terror attack that's being conducted by enemies within our own government. What is the target? Like who ends up getting killed? Right? That's the real question. So, like, if you look at the massacre that happened in Texas, in Austin, Texas, who were the people that got shot? Civilians at a bar. Okay, so civilians at a bar get shot, and now it has all the ingredients of a false flag. The guy's got he's like a black man. I think he's like very African looking, African American, or an African immigrant. So he has no connection to Iran in this case. And he's wearing like an Iranian flag under his shirt. It says property of Allah. Like there's all these like telltale signs, right? But the biggest telltale sign is who got hit. And who got hit in that incident was civilians, right? So that's what you have to understand is civilians got hit. Now in Michigan recently, you had a terror attack strike a Jewish synagogue. Now, once again, civilians are getting hit, right? It's civilians, people minding their own business, getting hit by terrorists. Okay. And of course, you'd say, well, it would have to be Muslims because why would Jews attack a synagogue? Well, let me give you a little explanation here. Remember on October 7th, when the Hamas did attack Israel, or what they call Israel, the Jewish state, the rabbi state, and then the Israeli government killed a bunch of their own people to make the death toll higher, because they well, for whatever reason, right? And if you look at some of the terror attacks in the past that were occurred against synagogues, you'll notice that they were against Reformed Jews, Reformed Judaism. which isn't really considered real Judaism by like Chabad. I mean, maybe they'll say those people are Jews, but it's not considered like the real Jews, like the Chabad Jews, the ones that live in the tunnels under Brooklyn. It's not the real Jews that live in the tunnels under Brooklyn. It's the Reform Jews. So, question is, would these groups that control Donald Trump and the White House and the FBI, would they hit Jews in order to create more fervor and more in order to increase the anxiety and terror in the United States, in order to get people to support attacking Iran? I believe they would. I believe they would. I absolutely believe they would. And so the first question you have to ask yourself with terror attacks is, who's the target? Is it civilians being hit that are minding their own business? Because in that case, it usually is an intelligence operation. Or more accurate, well, a black operation. We'll call it a black op. Hit the civilians, because the civilian casualties or civilian targets create more fear among the population, right? If Iran hits a military base in somewhere in Saudi Arabia or in the Arab Peninsula, we're not really too afraid of that. That doesn't strike a lot of fear in the hearts of the average person. But if sleeper cells start hitting civilian targets here in the United States, then it becomes scary. And then the news is saying that the Iranians are behind it, or ISIS is behind it. And so that's another telltale sign. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for ISIS to carry out a terror attack on behalf of Iran, since ISIS is the enemy of Iran. So when the FBI or the news is reporting that ISIS did an attack for Iran, that's like the most idiotic thing. That's like saying that that's like saying that I don't know, like an LGBT did a terror attack to support abortion rights. It just doesn't make any sense. Like these things don't go together. You know what I mean? Iran and ISIS don't go together. They're like fighting each other. So that's like a kind of a strange thing. Like, you have only the stupid people in America that don't know what's going on, like the boomers and the other idiots that just like that can't distinguish between people and ideas. They're the ones that buy into all that kind of nonsense. But so some of the biggest proponents of this cover up, unfortunately, are Alex Jones. Alex Jones, who was on the Timcast the other day. And he just goes on and on about he's really lying to his audience about things. He wants you to think that the stupid people think it's the Jews or Judaism or Israel. So let me clarify how I look at this. As the world's leading etymologist and historian, intelligence historian, theoretician, is that the way I look at it is this: it's not the state of Israel, like the state. That's just a government that exists over there. They're setting that up as a center of power, just like Washington, D.C. is a center of power, just like the European Union is a center of power. So you got to understand, Washington, D.C., the European Union, and the state of Israel are centers of power for the same group. And it's the same Jewish mafia. They have a center of power called the European Union in Brussels. And they have a center of power called Washington, D.C. And they have a center of power called, the Israeli government. It's the same people run each one of those things through a network called B'nai B'rith Anti-Defamation League. So like when Alex Jones will tell you, when he says like, oh, there's all these other people, there's all these tech people and the Bill Gates and all this different stuff. All those organizations are controlled by the B'nai B'rith Anti-Defamation League. They're all controlled by Anti-Defamation League B'nai B'rith. Every social media group is controlled by the Anti-Defamation League. So YouTube, Facebook, Google, Twitter, TikTok, they're all controlled by the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith, which is a Rothschild group, the Epstein-Rothschild B'nai B'rith Anti-Defamation League. They control everything. Now, the FBI, sadly, I mean, the FBI is a police organization, but they're like police organization, but they're actually also a propaganda organization. Unfortunately, I mean, it'd be nice to have a real police organization, but they're almost there to not just attack their enemies, but they're there to propagandize to the public. So the FBI puts out reports about terrorism, which are designed to terrorize the public and designed to mislead the public. And they don't find out who's behind any of the terrorists because it's the Anti-Defamation League and it's this Rothschild Epstein group. And this is how it's been going the whole time. That's why now that doesn't mean there's not good people in the FBI that would like to uncover this and get it to certain politicians like Thomas Massie or others and try to get people in the government to do something. But those people are what do you call it? They're pinned down. Right? Those people in the FBI, they'd be considered pinned down, not able to really like actively carry out their mission, right? So when you see the terror attack in Austin, Texas, what does that guy have to do with Iran? Oh, he's wearing an Iranian flag under his shirt. Okay, well that's very what a coincidence. What a coincidence. He has nothing to do with Iran. Why would Iran even do that? That's so dumb. Why would Iran attack a bar in Texas? Is that in Iran's interest? No. Whose interest is it in? It's in the interest of the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith Epstein Rothschild network. See, it's in their interest. They're the ones pushing Trump to war with Iran. They're the ones that want to terrorize the American people into war with Iran. And would they attack a Reformed Jewish synagogue? Yes. Of course they would. Of course they would. Because then people, it works on different levels. Number one, it terrorizes the public. Number two, it gains more sympathy for Judaism, and that means that the FBI now has more power to protect Judaism against anti-Semitism, including speech like mine, which is saying that there's this mafia called the Anti-Defamation League. See, it works absolutely in their favor. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop the next terror attack against the Reformed Jewish Center if that's what these people want, but it will prevent you from attacking the power group, and that power group is the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith that controls the FBI and controls Donald Trump and runs the Pentagon through Donald Trump. That's how that works. So let me give you an example. When it comes to terror attacks, you got to ask yourself, who are the people being hit? Is it civilians minding their own business? Or is it guerrillas going after military targets? Because I'll give you an example. What's more scary? And what's more effective? What's a scary thing versus what's the effective thing? If Iran was serious, which I don't believe they are, about hitting targets in the United States, would they target a military base in the United States that attacked them? Would they target the president of the United States that is working with the Israeli government to take out their leadership? Would they target a radar system or something that's being used against them? Or would they target a bar in Austin, Texas? Or would they target a Reformed synagogue, Jewish synagogue in Michigan? What makes sense to you? Are you an idiot? Are you an idiot? You'd have to be an idiot to think that Iranians would be behind this. Now, who are these people that would do this? Well, they got the guy and he was a black guy. You look like a very African American. If he is, or maybe he's like a migrant from Africa. Nothing to do with Iran. He's not Iranian. He's wearing an Iranian flag for some reason. Like, how did he get himself into this situation? Is he on drugs? Is somebody drugging him and turning him into what's called a golem, to carry out terrorist attacks? Kind of looks that way. I don't know how they would do that, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible. I think it's possible. I think it's likely. And they do this with black people now. Before they were just mainly doing it with whites. But now because Donald Trump's in power, now the terrorists have to be black, which is interesting. Now the terrorists have to be black. It's better if they're black now because that's better for Donald Trump's image. Whereas under Obama, the terrorists were white. Under Obama and also Trump's first term, that helped the Democrats to have the white terrorists. So they've always got these terrorists attacking civilian targets, and the FBI never uncovers what's behind it, and the thing just gets covered up. And if you notice, that's because they're hitting civilians. Nobody has an interest. No one overseas has an interest in hitting civilians. You just look at the war between Iran and Israel. Yes, some civilians have been hit in Israel, but the targets that the Iranians are going after aren't civilian targets. They're hitting military targets. Military targets. Now, some of them are in civilian areas. Like, for instance, there was a hotel that got hit somewhere in the Middle East over there. Literally the CIA was inside the hotel room, and the drone flew through the window into that specific room of that hotel. Right. So the hotel was being used by, the CIA and Mossad to carry out operations in Iran, and it got hit. But they're not targeting civilians, you see. And so when you see civilians being targeted, that's a telltale sign, in my opinion, from my perspective, that this is the Anti-Defamation League, B'nai B'rith, intelligence services connected to the FBI and the CIA and Mossad and the IDF, and also MI6 is often involved in these. That's who I would suspect when they're hitting civilians, when they're hitting people just minding their own business, whether that's in a synagogue, and a Reformed synagogue over in Michigan, because Reformed Judaism isn't really Judaism according to the inner group. It's, they're just whatever. They're like the Methodists, they're like the Methodists. They're not the real Jews. They're like the Methodists. I think that's the way that they look at it. And I think that's the way that they looked at some of those people on October 7th too, that were down there like partying at, 5-6 o'clock in the morning. It's like, well, those people are expendable to this group. I do believe that. They're the ones that would have no qualms about killing their fellow Jews to forward this bigger, more important agenda. So, did Erica Kirk have any qualms about having Charlie Kirk killed? Did that bother her? Did TPUSA, did it bother them to watch Charlie Kirk get killed? Like Mikey McCoy, did that bother him at all? No. Or his father, the mentally ill Zionist pastor, is his name Rob McCoy? Did that bother him when Charlie Kirk got shot or however he died? Did it bother that guy? Not really. No, it was part of the overall agenda, right? They've got a plan, man. People got to die. So yeah, that's not out of the question. So would they kill? So now that's the thing. You turn on the news and it's like terror, war, and they just got to ramp all this stuff up. Who's ramping it up and for what purpose? Well, who's ramping it up and for what purposes? It's the Anti-Defamation League, Epstein group that controls the FBI. The FBI is almost like the media. You got to start thinking of the FBI as a media group with police powers. And they're covering up a child trafficking mafia. That doesn't mean all the FBI people are doing this. But the FBI has turned into part of the media. The FBI is essentially a media organization. It's not even a police. It is a police organization, but it's like a media/police organization run by the Anti-Defamation League. That's probably the best way to understand the FBI. It's a media/police organization run by the Jewish mafia, Epstein, international Jewish mafia, with ties to foreign governments. That's the FBI. So would they carry out a terror attack in America? Would they lie and say that, or cover up? Like, would they organize a terror attack, kill a bunch of civilians, and then lie and cover it up? They would, because look who their bosses are. It's the Anti-Defamation League. It's the Epstein Group. It's the Rothschild Group. So why wouldn't they? If that's who they answer to, those people want to kill you. They don't care about America. That's why Donald Trump is such a complete failure. That's why Donald Trump is such a complete failure, because he's giving everything away to the people that don't give a shit about America. All they care about is Judaism. All they care about is establishing a new center of power for their group, their crime gang called the Jewish Mafia, creating a new center of power in the state of Israel. But it's not the state of Israel that's doing it. It's coming from this international network. But that's going to be their new hub. See, their old hub was Washington, D.C. Their new hub is Tel Aviv. Their old hub was London. Their new hub is Tel Aviv. Their old hub. So they're going to keep these old hubs as secondary hubs. So the Rothschilds are going to operate internationally. They're going to continue to operate internationally. They're going to control Europe. They're going to control the Anglosphere. They're going to control Canada, Australia, and America through these old hubs. But then they're going to have the new power, which is wherever they say it is. It could be in Tel Aviv, or it could be, in wherever. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever they say, because they have the power to determine that. So the question is, would these people that aren't Americans, don't care about America, and they're involved in organized crime, would they kill a bunch of Americans, including Reformed Jews? Yes, they would. Jews would kill Reformed Jews. Like, I'm telling you, okay, Benjamin Netanyahu and the people he's associated with would kill Reformed Jews. They absolutely would. They absolutely would. The Anti-Defamation League, that whole group. Talking about people that push. You're talking about a group of people that push cutting the genitalia off children. Like, I'm not talking about circumcision. I'm talking about cutting off the genitalia entirely. The entire thing, cutting it off, and then creating a fake vagina on a child, so that, and then giving him fake hormones. Like, this is who these people are. This is who Dave Rubin is. This is who Scott Bessent is. You don't think they would attack a synagogue, a Reformed synagogue? Of course they would. These are insane. These are criminally insane people, and they run the FBI. So when you're getting these reports from the FBI about terror attacks that they somehow can never solve, they always cover it up, and the information never makes sense. Well, that's why, because that's who these people are. It's a gang of criminals. Now, that doesn't mean everybody in the FBI is a criminal. That doesn't mean everybody at Sheriff's Department is a criminal. I'm just saying, your local Sheriff's Department meets with the Anti-Defamation League. I've called my Sheriff's Department many times in the past, hoping I could talk to somebody about that and go, hey, you guys, you know who the Jewish Mafia is, and I notice you're taking pictures with them, and they don't want to hear it. They're totally brainwashed, and the terrorism acts to brainwash them, because they see the terror, and then they know that the attacks are against Jews, like, the Reformed Jews, right? That these people would kill, that the ADL Mafia Epstein Group, they'll kill them. Okay. And then you're like, hey, bro, there's this Jewish Mafia. They're like, oh, you're one of them. You're one of them. You're one of the anti-Semites. It's total brainwashing. It's called trauma-based mind control. I coined that term. There's no way for me to show you that unless I show you, like, the first time it was used, which was by me. And it was a while ago. And I'm proud that I coined it, because that's a very popular term. People understand it. But that's what they're doing. Trauma-based mind control. So terror attacks happen, and the police themselves, people in the FBI themselves, get brainwashed by it, because they see it and then they go, they don't believe in conspiracy theories, and why would Jews why would the Mossad attack a Reformed Jewish synagogue? They wouldn't do that. They're both Jews. Because you're an idiot. That's why. Because you're stupid and you believe stupid things, and then you're easily tricked. You're just easily tricked because you're dumb. So that's where we're at. The solution to this is to screen out the mafia and criminals out of the government. And we don't have so that's why this is why this is so important. I'll finish off with this. Donald Trump and this whole gang of criminals that he's associated with, they think that the strength is not getting the criminals out because that'll destroy the government. No. See, if a government can't, if the people in power cannot, don't have the discipline to go after criminals within the circles of power and get rid of them, that's what causes the government to collapse. See, that's not a weakness, that's a strength. The real strength of the executive branch of the government would be going after the criminals, the terrorists and criminals and people, the organized crime inside the government. But they've been convinced that this would be a weakness because it would bring down the government. It's not. See, when you listen to what I say, if you're an FBI agent or you're someone over at the Department of Justice or you're somebody at a police organization, you'd say, he's trying to bring down the government because he's saying all these conspiracies. He's saying that they're involved in crime. Well, they are involved in crime. And if you don't exclude them, the government will just get worse and worse and worse and dissolve. It's not a strength. It's not a strength to protect criminals inside the government, which is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. And it's exactly what the FBI has been doing for decades, which is protecting a crime ring inside the government called the Epstein Group and others which are engaged in terrorism. See, it's not a strength. It's the thing that will eventually cause look, Donald Trump's losing the war with Iran. The U.S. is losing the war in Ukraine to people who have stronger, more disciplined governments. See, the Chinese are more disciplined. The Iranians are more disciplined. They don't tolerate as much, apparently, this kind of crime existing within their circles. I don't know. I'm saying it's not a weakness. Vladimir Putin is disciplined about who's going to be in there. We don't have the Epstein pedophile rings aren't running stuff over in Moscow. That's what I'm saying. See, they have the discipline to keep these people out. The U.S. doesn't have it. The U.S. thinks it's a strength. The U.S. Thinks it's a strength to have criminal gangs and doing weird crimes because that way everyone's blackmailed. It's not a strength. It's just gonna lead to the eventual dissolution of the government. The complete things, the whole thing's gonna fall apart. Imagine this. Imagine you're running a big corporation, and it's back in the 1940s, all these people that were industrious and smart and had good work ethic and discipline, and then it was handed over to a bunch of perverts and deviants and degenerates and drug addicts, and it all falls apart. Well, that's the U.S. government. That's what's happening to the U.S. government. It's not a strength. It doesn't make the government stronger to have cannibals and pedophiles running it and drug addicts and people that take ketamine. That doesn't make the government stronger. It makes it weaker. And this is a lesson that I'm afraid. See, here's the thing. If you go back and you look at everything I ever posted on the internet and everything I posted on Facebook that was critical of the US and critical of the FBI and critical, this is my criticism, is that you're going to destroy it, not me. The only hope you have to save this government is to have a strong leader. See, this is what they hate. A strong leader like a Hitler that'll come in and clean up the trash. And that doesn't mean kill them. That means get them out of power. See, and I'm not just talking about Jews. I'm talking about a strong leader figure that himself has. It's almost like you have to come to God and say, okay, I am going to dedicate my mind and my soul to righteousness and what is right. Because I'm now the executive. I'm now in the position of power. And so I'm going to use this power to do what is right and clear out the evil doers, clear out those who are not aligned to the truth of God, because the government depends on that. This is a lesson that they're going to have to learn the hard way. Judaism is not under God. That's a sinister cult of rabbis and weirdos and perverts and degenerates who are narcissistic weirdos who self-proclaim to be the chosen people. You're not. You're not. I don't want to make this video about that, but you cannot self-proclaim yourself to be the chosen people or by the virtue of your birth. You know, if you want to use biblical explanations, Abraham was the father of Israel because he heard the word of God, which we call the Logos, Jesus Christ. That's called the Logos. That's called the word of God, the light of God, the manna, the bread. I'm not going to make this video about this. I make all my videos are kind of about this. So you're not, you see, when you say, I'm the chosen, this is just some kind of narcissistic megalomaniac. That's what runs it. And this is why they don't go after the criminals, because they're narcissistic megalomaniacs who think they're the chosen people and they have a license to kill and murder and enslave and eat other human beings and traffic children. And see what I mean? These are narcissistic, psychopathic megalomaniacs. So that's not good for the government. And if you're in the FBI, I'm actually not the problem, bro. See, I'm not the problem. Andrew Anglin's not the problem. Lucas Gage isn't the problem. Nick Fuentes isn't the problem. All the anti-Semites and Stu Peters, we're not the problem, bro. It's the criminals that are sitting on top of your organization called the Epstein Group and the Rothschild Group, the Jewish Mafia Anti-Defamation League is your problem. That's the group.